nobody has the right to kill. Nobody has the right to kill. Hello, I'm Rabbi David Novak. I am a professor of Jewish studies at the University of Toronto, and I am honored to be the vice president of the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation. Today I'm speaking about the misinformation that has been given to the public by especially the National Council of Jewish Women, arguing that in the Jewish tradition, abortion is a right. And this is incredibly misleading and misleading many people who have no idea what the Jewish tradition teaches on this issue. Let me begin by saying that according to the Torah, which is the Hebrew Bible, which we believe is divinely revealed, and the whole tradition of interpretation that has been developed and is still developing within the Jewish community historically. In that whole tradition based upon divine revelation, the only right that you have to kill is in self-defense. And if somebody's coming at you with a gun, or at somebody else with a gun, you are supposed to save their life, even if it means killing the assailant. But anything other than that is simply not allowed. Now, that is an indisputable factor. And the Jewish tradition talks about rights. Children have the right to the love and support of their parents. Parents have the right to be honored and respected by their children. There are numerous rights that have a corresponding duty. In other words, if I have a right to something, then you have a duty to minimally not interfere with my right and maximally to aid me in exercising my right. Now, all human life, from conception to death, has a right to live, which means that all the rest of us have a duty minimally not to end that life, to interfere with that life, maximally to aid that life to live as fully as and happily as possible. That is what the Jewish tradition teaches. And questions of whether an unborn child or a fetus is a person or not is really not relevant, because even if one doesn't regard a fetus as an acting person, it's still in a way part of its mother's body. Nonetheless, in the Jewish tradition, an unborn child is called Adam, is called a human being. And human beings are created in the image of God. And therefore, an assault on another human being is an assault on God, which is obviously not possible, but one does the next nearest thing, which is an assault on the image of God, which is a human being. Now, there are those who cite numerous cases where some rabbis in the past, permitted abortions under certain conditions. And I think that many of these cases were very isolated instances. And also, at the time that these cases were decided, abortion was not a political issue. It was something that was very rare. So there were disputes about this, to be sure, in the tradition. But nobody said that a person has the right to abortion. They did differ on what constituted a threat to the mother's life. Now, all of that is largely irrelevant today because, number one, cases where a pregnancy is really threatening to the mother's life are extremely rare, usually easily handled by good prenatal care. And also, this is not something which one has a right to do or an obligation to help somebody else exercise what they think is a right, which is at somebody else's expense. It's the expense of the unborn child. And The various texts from the Bible and the Jewish tradition that are cited are all incredibly misinterpreted by those who have turned this into a political issue based upon criteria that are actually antithetical to the normative Jewish tradition. I want to cite one example of this type of misinformation. Many years ago, the American Jewish Committee, which is an important Jewish organization in the United States, commissioned several Jewish scholars, myself included, to write papers on the Jewish tradition's approach to various great public issues. I was assigned capital punishment, and I indicated that there were those in the Jewish community that regarded capital punishment as a good. There were those who couldn't say that it was totally outlawed because the Bible mandates it, but indicated that it was to be very, very rarely, if ever, put into practice. That was indisputable. However, the late Rabbi David Feldman, who wrote a book called Birth Control and Jewish Law, which was very, very liberal on the question of abortion. But Rabbi Feldman, whom I knew quite well, still was beholden to the Jewish tradition, who never said explicitly that somebody had a right to an abortion. He didn't go that far because he was still very much somebody who was beholden to the tradition. When we came together, a certain professor of, I think it was social work at the time, who, for all I know, might be a member of the National Council for Jewish Women, was terribly upset with Rabbi Feldman's paper, which I thought was too lenient, but nonetheless, that he didn't explicitly say that this is a right that can be exercised for no reason whatsoever. And at that time, I challenged her as follows. I said, all right, you write a paper that argues that position and tell us why that paper is a Jewish statement other than the fact that it was written by somebody with an obviously Jewish name. The paper was never written. But I think a version of that paper or that kind of a statement was issued by the National Council for Jewish Women. To be charitable, I would say that they are mistaken, and mistakes need to be corrected. We are obligated, dabru emet, to speak the truth. And I think that what I'm saying is not just my personal opinion, but is something which is consistent with the Jewish tradition of Torah min hashamayim, of the divinely revealed Torah, as interpreted within the Jewish tradition. And to cite random cases from the past when circumstances were very, very different to support a kind of a general position that there is a right to abortion is simply false and needs to be exposed as such. Thank you.